All right, so here we are in our lesson on graphing rational numbers in the coordinate plane. Today after this lesson, I will be able to identify different parts of a coordinate plane and also plot rational numbers in all four quadrants of a coordinate plane. And that should say quadrants, not quadranta. There we go. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to go through a lot of different vocabulary. So you're going to have a lot you need to write down, and you might have to add some of these to your notes. So a coordinate grid. A coordinate grid is a grid formed by the intersection of horizontal and vertical lines that is used to locate points. So you guys have seen these before, all right? And typically we see them when they look like this. Now we are going to talk about a quadrant or a coordinate grid that has four different quadrants, all right? And you can even know that they have quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and then we have quadrant 4. All right. An ordered pair. So an ordered pair is two numbers that can be used to locate a point on a coordinate plane. They are always written the x-coordinate and then the y-coordinate. All right. And so you have an example here. So then on the plane, if it's 4, 5, it would be 4 over and 5 up. And so the ordered pair would be 4, 5. The origin is the point where the x-axis and y-axis intersect on the coordinate plane, okay, and they make 0, 0. So this point right here is our origin. It's where everything starts. So whenever you graph something, you always have to start at the origin. And the origin, if you look at the word, origin actually means the beginning or where something starts. Quadrants, okay, quadrants are the sections created by the x and y axes. And again, you have the four different quadrants here. So we're used to really just focusing on these. Now after this lesson, we are going to be talking about all four. And because we have negative numbers, and so now we have to extend that number line to include negative numbers on the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. Speaking of horizontal axis, the horizontal line that splits a coordinate plane into quadrants is called the x-axis. So this line right here is your x-axis. Then your x-coordinate is the first number in an ordered pair. It also tells you the distance to move right or left from the origin. So here's your ordered pair, okay? And it tells you from the origin to move 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the right. And we know that it's to the right because it's positive. So your coordinates work the same with your number line. If this had been a -4, we would have had to go to the left. Then the y-axis is the line that is vertical that splits the coordinate grid into axes or into quadrants. And then your y-coordinate is the second number in an ordered pair, and it tells the distance to move up or down from the origin. So it's your up and down number. All right, so here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph all these numbers. We're used to graphing whole numbers in the coordinate plane, and now we're going to not only add negatives to that, but we're also going to add rational numbers. So numbers that have fractional parts can be included on the coordinate grid. All right, so we're going to graph each point on the same coordinate on the same coordinate plane. Okay, so I want you to think of an airplane. So an airplane, now please don't tell Sarah about my horrible ability to draw an airplane. Oh wait, there's the wing. There we go. I mean, seriously, that's just beautiful, isn't it? Okay. An airplane has to go across the runway and then up into the air. All right, so just like an airplane, we're going to go across and then up or down. So here I have point A. Point A is 0 and 2/10 and then 3/5. So if I look at my coordinate plane, I know that it is, so here's 1, and this is a -1. So this one isn't even broken down into, this isn't 1, 2, 3. I have to look and see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. So each section here is worth 1/5, or I can say it's worth 2/10, which is equal to 0 and 2/10. All right, and we're just going to do it as a decimal here to kind of help us out. So A is 0 and 2/10, so I have to go over to 0 and 2/10, and then I have to go up to 3/5. Well, again, if I look at my intervals, okay, it is split into 5 again, so now I'm going to go, and each of these is a fifth, so I can just climb up 1, 2, 3. So this would be point A, because this is over 2/10, or 1/5, and then up 3/10, or 3/5, I'm sorry. Then we have B. So B is negative 3/6. Well, since I'm working in a fifth, in a thing that works with fifths, okay, so I have negative 3/6, and I know that's equal to 1/2. And in this case, I know 1/2 is equal to 5/10. So I have to kind of use what I know to help me plot here. So negative 3/6 is going to be halfway. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, halfway is going to be right about here. Because if I want to split it into tenths, this would be 1/10. So this could be 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, and then this would be 5/10. Okay? Or you can just find your fraction or decimal equivalencies. All right, so if I'm talking about fifths, halfway would be 2.5 fifths. So I would go 1, 2, and this would be 2.5. So I have to go to the left 2.5 because it's negative. And then I have to go, because it's negative, I have to go down 4/10. Okay, and 4/10 I can simplify and get 2/5. So I have to go down 1, 2. So this would be point B. Okay, so then here I have negative 5/10. So again, that's half. So this is negative half again. So we're going to be still going this way. So to the left because it's negative. And then it's positive, so I have to go up. You can even draw your little arrows here to help you out. So because this one is negative, I have to go left and down. And over here, this one was positive, so I had to go right. And this one was positive, so I went up. All right, so now I went left 0 and 5/10, so halfway. And then I have to go up 1. Well, 1 is all the way up here, so my plot would be right here. And that would be C. Now remember, we have to name our points or put our label on our points so that way we know which one is which. You can't just assume people are going to know that you did it right. So D has 0, so I don't have to move anywhere. I'm just here. So that tells me that my point is going to be somewhere on the y-axis because I didn't move off of it to go left or right, which seems weird because this is the x-coordinate. So the x-coordinate will tell you if you're on the y-axis by having a 0. Trust me, it'll make more sense as you continue to get practice on this. So this one you could say I don't move, and then here I move down because it's a negative 0 and 8/10. Okay, and then I can look at this and say 8/10. Well, I can divide both of them by 2, and I would get 4/5. So I would go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and here would be my point. All right, so then now what we want to know is what is the point? So what are the coordinates of point E on the grid, and to explain how we know. All right, so what we can do is we can look at first, which way do I go, left or right? Well, I'm going left, so I know my first number has to be a negative number because I'm going to the left. I'm going to make the font a little bit smaller. Okay, so I have to put my ordered pair inside of parentheses, otherwise it doesn't show me that it's an ordered pair. And these are all worth fifths. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 fifths to the left. So my point is 4 fifths, comma. And my next point is up, so I know it's going to be positive. Now here's the thing, it's in the middle here. So each one in the middle, since these are fifths, if I cut it in the middle here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I get another 5 sections. So now these aren't fifths, these are 5 times 2 is 10 because I made twice as many stops. So this would be 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. All right, so this again would be half. So I could write it as 5/10, or I could write it as 0 and 5/10. I could write it as 1/2, as long as it has the 5/10 equivalency. Now, the other way to look at this is we could have instead said that E is, let me get a different colored pen here for you guys. So we could have said, so it's up 1, 2, 2.5. And remember that each of them is worth fifths, so this would be 2.5 fifths. We could also have written that and then found some equivalencies and said, okay, well, if I multiply it by 2 and by 2, I get 5/10. Or I know that this is equal to half because I know 2.5 is half of 5. So you have different options here. If you were to use any of these, so this one, 0 and 5/10 as a decimal, those would all be acceptable and correct answers because they're all equivalent. Okay, and how do I know that it is -4/5 and 5/10? I know this because I had to go left 4 out of 5 spaces, and then up, and I had to go up 2.5 out of 5 spaces. All right, so you're just explaining how the direction helps you figure out what your coordinate is. You don't have to overthink this. The hardest part is going to be to find those equivalencies. So in which quadrant would you expect to find a point located at -6/10 and -8/10? And explain. So let's think about this. If it's negative and negative, so negative and negative means that I have to go left and then that I have to go down. So if I go, and I'll get another color here, if I go left anywhere and down, I'm going to be in this quadrant. And this is known as quadrant 3. Okay, we label our quadrants backwards. So this is quadrant 1, which we're all used to because we use it a lot. And then we go this way. Okay, then it's quadrant 2. And then this would be quadrant 4. And and more often than not, you're going to see Roman numerals to have those, to give you those quadrant numbers. That's a tough word. All right, so this point would be in quadrant 3 because both coordinates are negative. So you can use the signs to help you determine where the point would be. And I want you to make sure you have all this written down. If you don't, pause it right now to get everything written down, make it a little bit neater and nicer, because then I'm going to erase this so I can show you what I'm talking about with the positive and negative. All right, so I am going to clear this off now. Hopefully, I'm trying to do that right now. There we go. All right, so here in quadrant 1, everything's positive. So this is positive, positive, because I go to the right and I go up. So because I'm going right and up, it's positive, positive. Quadrant 2 is going to be negative and positive because I'm going so negative and positive. So any ordered pair that has a negative then a positive is going to be in quadrant 2 because I have to go left and then up. Now here, like we just said, we're going left and then down, so it's going to be negative, negative, because both of those are negatives on the number lines. So this is going to be quadrant 3 is going to be negative, negative, because you're going left and down. Quadrant 4, you're going to the right, but then you're going down. So it's going to be a positive and then a negative, because it's positive on the x-axis or on the horizontal number line, then it's negative on the vertical number line, and that's always going to land you in quadrant 4. Even if you don't have this memorized, you can kind of visualize it in your head if you put two number lines together and say, okay, well, one number line goes up and down, one number line goes left and right. This one is a positive, so I'd go to the right, and then this one is a negative, so I'd have to go down, so it's going to be in quadrant 4. All right, so then on this next one, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try these couple of problems on your own, and then when you come back, we'll go ahead and check your answer. All right, so he drew a map of certain locations in relation to his home. So in this case, we can assume that home would be the origin because that's where he is starting. So this would be home. What are the coordinates of the library? Well, we know it's going to be, it's right and up, so they're both going to be positives. We would go to the right 6. We don't get all the way to 7, so we can say that's about 6.5. And then we go up, and again, this line here is 5 that you can see, but we're not all the way to 5. We're not all the way on 5, and we're not all the way on 6. We're about halfway, so that would be about 5.5. So again, you could write this at 6.5, 5.5. You could write it using decimals. Either way is completely acceptable. Okay, I leave the library and ride my scooter 1.5 blocks south and then 3.5 blocks west. So 1.5 blocks south means that I go 1 full block. So 1 full block would get me to 5.5, and then another half would get me to 4. And then 3.5 blocks west, which would mean to the left. So 3.5 left. So I could do the half. I could say, okay, half gets me to 6. And then I have to go 3 more. So 1, 2, 3. So that would get me right here. So the coordinates of that would be 3 because you're directly on the line and it's positive. And then 4 because it's directly on the line. All right, and then 4A. Suppose you are asked to build a new library 7.5 blocks west and 2 7/75 blocks south from the old library. What are the coordinates? So if this is the old library, right? And we're going 7.5 blocks west. So again, go west means to the left. Okay, so let's go our half a block. That gets us to 6. And now we still have to go 7 more blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gets us to -1. And I know that because the library was at 6.5. So if I go 7.5, I'm going to pass 0 and get into the negative world. All right, so I know it's going to be on -1. And then 2 7/75 blocks south from the old library. So 2 7/75, so that would be 1, 2. This would be half, and then another 25/100. So this would actually be 3 7/75, but it's up, so it's positive. This is kind of tough, and we'll be working on it more in the next lesson, but I wanted to introduce you to it. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to please give me the coordinates of the museum, the post office, and the school. And then I'd also like you to tell me the quadrant. When you come back, we'll check your answers. All right, so the post office is at 110, and it is in quadrant 1. The school is at, so this is -8.5. It's not quite -9, so we're going to say -8.5. And it's on the 1 line in 1, and this is quadrant 2. And then the museum, it's not on 2, but it's not quite halfway. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this is 2 25/100. We are able to approximate because we don't have it split up that much, but you know that this isn't halfway. Okay, so you have to know that it's something smaller than halfway, which is about 2 25/100. And then it's down, so it's going to be negative, and it's just past the 5. And again, it's not quite halfway, so it's going to be Erase my line here so I have a little bit more space to show my answer. About -5 and 25 hundredths. You also could have written this as 2 1/4 and -5 and 1/4. Both of those would have been acceptable, and this again is quadrant 4. All right, last page. Again, you have an independent practice. What I would like you to do is I would actually like you to try these on your own. And then when you come back to class, that's when we're going to check your answers. I know it's tough, but give it a shot. Do your best. And when you come back, if you got it incorrect, it's not a problem. We're going to learn from that. All right. So again, if you have any questions, please be sure to email me or write them down so we can go over them in class.